I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network, back with what I believe is some of the most important videos that we make here on the MeidasTouch Network. And here we read your comments where we've heard stories from former Republicans who have left the MAGA Republican Party, because that is what the Republican Party has become today, because it is just too extreme. And we got tens of thousands of messages leading up to the midterm election of this mass exodus away from the MAGA Republican Party, with so many people now identifying as independent, identifying as Democratic, identifying as not affiliated, but overall a pro-democracy, pro-normal coalition voting for Democrats, because let's just face it, Democrats are the only major political party in the United States of America with candidates who actually support our democracy, with actual adults in the room. And so once again, we ask you to share your stories or the stories of people you know, whether it's colleagues or neighbors or friends or coworkers, people who have left the Republican Party, which is now the MAGA Republican Party, because of the extremism. We're going to read some of those comments right now, and we ask that you share your stories in the comments below and share this video with as many people as you know, and share it specifically, if you can, with people who are on the fence, people who still may be Republicans or part of the MAGA Republican Party, but show them, let them know that there is this vibrant community, this pro-democracy, pro-normal community of people who love our country, who want to focus on the issues and not focus on dividing our country with stupid and dangerous and idiotic and QAnon conspiracy stuff like the MAGA Republicans want to do. So let's get into it. Here is the ask that we made on our YouTube community page that you all responded to. We wrote the following. Wow, we are receiving more messages than ever from followers who either know people who have left the Republican Party due to MAGA extremism or who left the party themselves. If you have a similar story, share it with us. And we received thousands of responses. Here's the first one that I want to read. FPS Staying writes, I have stopped voting for any Republican candidates that won't admit the election results were legitimate, against women's rights, or support Trump. That about defines the current Republican Party as the MAGA Republican Party. Thanks for sharing. This is from Ice9. As a lifelong independent, I have always voted for the best person, but the MAGA movement is too radical to support. I agree. Thanks for sharing. Skeptic Theologist writes, ex-Republican here, left them because they lost their marbles. They don't care about the nation, the people, or the Constitution. I couldn't agree more with you. This comes from Julie Brown. I often voted Republican prior to 2016, but refused to vote for Trump. Now I doubt I will ever vote for Republicans again. They no longer stand for values, principles, or the Constitution. I agree. This is from TX Patriot. They go, I'm former military. I never joined a party, but I used to always vote Republican. I helped our DA beat the incumbent and win his first election. As of 2020, I will not vote for a Republican for dog catcher. Thanks for sharing. Mr. Stay Brown writes, I used to be Republican up to the point when Trump started talking down veterans. I'm a Marine veteran and I am now a Democrat. Thanks for sharing. This comes from Johnny Ringo. Military vet, former law enforcement, proud liberal my whole life. But several of my former colleagues let me know over the past several years they have left the Republican Party. Some joined the Democratic Party. A couple said they will consider themselves independent, but most likely will vote Democrat. Thanks for sharing, Johnny. This comes from Greenus. In my 60s, voted Republican my entire adult life, changed my party affiliation to Democrat after Trump was elected. I will never vote Republican again. This comes from Johnny Boone. My boss in North Carolina was a hardcore Trump supporter in 2016. In 2020, he voted independent and stopped discussing politics very much. Yesterday, he told me that the best thing that could happen in America would be for Trump to be imprisoned. He confided in me that he is now a registered independent and mainly voted for Democrats in the midterms. Listen to that story, folks, because whenever I always hear, oh, there's no way to help out MAGA Republicans, it's a lost cause, I don't believe that. I think it is important and incumbent upon all of us as part of this pro-democracy, pro-normal community to reach out and to let people know and to give them a soft landing, because we all want to make sure that our country is as best as it can possibly be. I want to read you another one. This comes from Sally Daniel. Sally writes, I left the Republicans right after Trump was elected and have no regrets. I've always voted more Democrat anyways and was a Republican because most of my family is not anymore. This comes from S. Larson 231. My boyfriend's parents voted Republican their entire lives. The other day they said that they would never vote Republican again. They were MAGAs until January 6th. Again, listen to these stories, folks, because even if it comes after January 6th, it is so critical, so vital that we make sure this pro-democracy, pro-normal community continues to grow. We need to be compassionate. We need to make sure we give people who are leaving the MAGA Republican parties a soft landing. We need to tell them about this much bigger, much larger, previously exhausted majority. And we're exhausted because all of the conspiracies, all we want to do is go out there and spend time with our families and engage in hobbies and to have great conversations and to just go out into the world and be happy and not have all of these MAGA extremists divide us and try to hurt us and try to harm humanity. Let's keep reading some of these. This comes from Linkman 247. Linkman writes, my uncle served in the Navy during Vietnam as a boatswain's mate on a variety of ships. He was on the Enterprise on PT boats. He used to be a registered Republican. He left the party when Donald Trump attacked John McCain for being captured. Thanks for sharing. Kay writes, both myself and husband were Republicans. He was raised to go down the column and just vote red no matter what. I left the party in 2015 when I saw the hell that Trump was bringing to our country. My husband left in 2021. We are both independents now. Neither of us voted for Trump in 2016 nor 2020. The Republican Party is broken. It's too centered on extreme views on God and guns. The Italian guy writes, and I like this one a lot. Let me read this for you. I was a hardcore Republican in 2012. I wrote articles for an extremist Tea Party Facebook page. I was excommunicated from the group and banned from the page when I wrote a nuanced article about immigration and how migrant families are good for our economic growth, and even debunked the idea that they contribute to violent crime. I cited a lot of studies and was proud of it. They called me a libtard and a rhino. It bothered me for a while, but still considered myself a moderate Republican. Then around 2013, I got freaked out by the violent rhetoric on the Tea Party website I was still a part of, but not a moderator for. So I decided I was a left-tilting Republican. When Trump was nominated in 2015, I left the GOP. I was done. When he won the presidency, I changed my affiliation from independent to Democrat. I will never, ever vote GOP again. Thank you for sharing that, the Italian guy. Vic T writes, my brother-in-law was full-blown MAGA from the second Donnie made his announcement in 2015. Fell for the, quote, law and order, end quote, line, especially during the 2020 protest. What changed was January 6th. Watching traitors storm the Capitol and assault police officers in the name of a wannabe dictator started it. Then seeing the people that he watched, Hannity, Carlson, Gutfeld, and those who he voted for, Cruz and Cornyn, insult and ridicule and call those officers liars on a daily basis did it. He said as a former officer, he couldn't stand, quote, the idiot assholes, end quote, who never wore a badge, treat legitimate heroes that way. He now votes independent, but did vote blue for some candidates he agreed with. I think that is a very important story shared by Vic T, and I want you all to take that story to heart as you talk to people who are in your family or coworkers or others who may still be part of the MAGA Republican Party. Share that with them. Share this video with them. Let them know that there is this large pro-democracy, pro-normal community focused on the issues that actually matter to Americans, and that they are welcome here, and that we will welcome them as long as they're not going to support fascists and dictators and QAnon or any of that Trumpism. I got another one from AK at the Lake, writes, my husband has left the party due to Trump, McConnell, McCarthy, and many others who have destroyed the Republican Party. Thanks for sharing. And finally, this comes from Rocco Rubino, who writes, I was a staunch Republican who voted twice for Reagan. I registered Democrat after Trump mocked the disabled reporter at one of his rallies, and you all heard from the GOP was crickets. All you heard from the GOP was crickets. I can't ever again vote Republican again because of the way they peed their pants over Trump. And I couldn't agree more with you, Rocco, there. I think that's an important point. And you compare what these MAGA extremists are talking about. I mean, it still is the party of Donald Trump to this day. And we do videos here on the MeidasTouch network that by noon, Donald Trump has already posted like 60 deranged posts in the morning calling for the termination of the Constitution, attacking the United States Supreme Court justices who he appointed, attacking any Republican that doesn't just kiss his ass, and calling them a rhino if they don't want to overturn the results of the 2020 election. He posts QAnon memes every day. I mean, literally a dangerous and deranged cult. Trump is posting photos of himself with Q over his head, where the QAnon philosophy, if you want to call it, their belief is that Donald Trump is going to overthrow the government in a bloody and violent coup and have public executions of all public officials. That's what the storm is coming mean. And he posts memes about that. That is who the Republican Party is. And they are so afraid and so weak that they can't even call that out. And then they have no agenda themselves. So rather than talk about issues that actually matter to the American people, the Republicans talk about Mr. Potato Head and the green M&M and Dr. Seuss and how Disney characters are too woke for them. Those are the issues that they talk about. They whine and complain about Twitter not posting Hunter Biden dick photos in October of 2020. I mean, it is bizarre and deranged. But you can't just look at what they're doing. Let's talk about the positive of what Democrats are doing. Let's talk about what the pro-democracy coalition is talking about. We're talking about jobs. We're talking about how do we get Americans to have high-paying jobs that they deserve and to have working conditions that treats them with dignity. What we're talking about is healthcare. How do we lower the prescription drug prices? How do we make healthcare affordable and accessible to you and to all Americans? We're talking about education. How do we make education affordable and accessible? We're talking here about real freedoms. We're talking about a freedom of a woman to over her own body and a freedom for a woman to have her own privacy rights without the government getting involved in decisions that she is making and that she is making with her doctor. We're talking about the freedom of Americans in the LGBTQ plus community to marry who they want to marry without the government getting involved and saying you can't marry this person, and using government force to try to block that and to criminalize that. We're talking about infrastructure. How do we truly improve our roads and our bridges? We're talking about helping veterans. How do we make sure that veterans who come back from fighting for our country and serving our country, how do we make sure that they get the best benefits that they deserve? How do we make sure that they get the health care that they deserve? How do we make sure that we have responsible gun ownership? How do we make sure that someone who just turns 18, if they have no experience at all and they have all of these red flags, why should they get a weapon of war when members of the United States military have to undergo training? Why are Republicans fighting so hard to make sure that people with no training and no experience get war weapons? All we're asking for, we're not saying that you shouldn't have gun ownership at all. All we're saying is you shouldn't be able to have weapons of war without any experience, without any training, without appropriate background checks. There should be responsible gun ownership, period, full stop. So the contrast could not be clearer. Whereas we on pro-democracy side support other democracy-loving nations across the world and support nations that love freedom and support NATO and our traditional allies, the MAGA Republicans support Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin. That's who they look up to. They want to make America second, like a satellite country to Vladimir Putin. Are you kidding me? The contrast could not be clearer. So it's not just how deranged is Donald Trump. It's not just how deranged is McCarthy and McConnell and Ted Cruz and all of those people, because they're very deranged and dangerous and they hate democracy. Just look at their actions. This isn't hyperbole. Just look at what they're focused on. And frankly, weird. They're weird. Okay, they're talking about Mr. Potato Head and the green M&M legs and QAnon stuff. Like, it's some weird stuff and dangerous as well. But you compare that to what we're talking about here in the pro-democracy side, which is championing real freedom and championing issues that matter to Americans. That is the difference. It's an important difference. So I ask you, share your stories, share this video. We thank you so much for watching this. Hit the subscribe button. We are on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to your great support. And in addition, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Check it out. We have exclusive content that you could only get at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. But most importantly, it helps grow this independent media platform. We are not funded by any outside investors at all. So we rely 100% on crowdfunding. We're 100% independent. And not only do we compete with the major media networks, we frequently beat them every day on these digital platforms. So we appreciate you. And until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
Our blue wall stopped the red wave and election deniers got denied election. That's why we're celebrating with the new Democracy Prevails team. We've got lots of work to do, but we should all be proud that when democracy was tested, democracy prevailed. You've earned this. Don't wait. Get yours right now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.